For this session, we move into the book of Revelation, a book that I consider to be the postscript to the Bible. What I mean by that is we've got all kinds of prophetic statements made in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, in the Thessalonian letters, in Matthew chapters 24 and 25, and books like that. But now Revelation is the final prophetic voice, and we would expect that this book is going to kind of shape some things up and kind of clarify some things and give us some final marching orders. And indeed, that's what the book of Revelation accomplishes. How is Jesus Christ revealed in the book of Revelation? Well, he's the King of Kings. He's the Lord of Lords. He's this Jewish king that had been promised all through the Old Testament. And he came and he was crucified and resurrected and has been seated at the right hand of God and serving in the church as a high priest. But now in the book of Revelation, we're going to see this brief window of time that's occurring before the second coming of Christ. It's called the 7-year tribulation. But to back up for a minute and just to clarify, we have a situation here toward the close of the 1st century AD where the Emperor Domitian was ruling. He was the Roman Empire, and they were engaged in emperor worship. They were engaged in like crucifying people in the church, and church and state were on a collision course. And things were really difficult for the church, so much so that John, who is the oldest and longest living of the apostles, he lived into the AD 90s. The apostle John was exiled by Domitian onto the island of Patmos. And it's while he's on the island of Patmos that he gets this great revelation. And this is straight from God to the apostle John. There is not one quote from the Old Testament in the entire book of Revelation. This is all new, fresh. And as I say, it's the postscript. So the way to interpret Revelation, I interpret plainly, normally, historically, grammatically. This seems to read very clearly as mostly in the future. In other words, Revelation chapters 1 to 3 deal with the time period of the church, the time of the church age, particularly chapters 2 and 3. And then chapters 4 to 22 are all still in the future to John's day, if he's writing in AD 95, and in fact, still future to our day. And so I take the futurist position on Revelation because I think it's built on literal interpretation of the Bible. That's how the Bible interprets itself. It allows the argument of the book to speak for itself, that we have a church age, then we have a rapture, then we have a 7-year tribulation, second coming of Jesus, and a millennial kingdom on earth. And after that millennial kingdom, chapters 21 and 22 is the eternal state. That's just the plain reading of this book. It's a lot simpler than some people make it out to be. It allows the whole of Scripture to find its culmination in the book of Revelation, and it puts a check on subjectivity. I mean, there's a judgment in Revelation where there's 100-pound hailstones that fall out of the sky and kill people. Now, what do I think that means? I think it means that there's going to be 100-pound hailstones falling out of the sky killing people, just like Revelation says. But other people who aren't convinced of that literal interpretation will make the hailstones mean something different. Now I'm going to guide you as I guide myself to Revelation 1:19. I think the interpretive key to this book is to recognize that Revelation 1:19 is the divine outline of the book. In other words, this tells us what the book is about in time sequences. Revelation 1:19, write therefore, in other words, Jesus is telling John, here's what you're going to write. Write, therefore, the things which you have seen. Okay, that's Revelation chapter 1. He's just been through that. And the things which are, that's Revelation chapters 2 and 3, the letters to the 7 churches, and the things which shall take place after these things. And so Revelation 1 would be the things which have been. That's John on the island of Patmos. He's been exiled. Revelation 2 and 3, that's the things which are. That's the letters to the 7 churches. Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. Much can be studied and learned about each of these churches. And then Revelation 4 to 22 is the things which shall be after the things which are. And sure enough, when you go to Revelation 4 verse 1, it says, and now I'm going to show you the things which shall be after the things which are. And those things are the tribulation period, which seal, trumpet, and bowl judgments. And then the second coming of Jesus, with the judgment seat already done. Christians are already rewarded because we return with Jesus at the second coming. The marriage supper to the Lamb, and then the marriage supper in general. Then you got the millennial kingdom with Jesus reigning on earth for 1,000 years. Satan is bound for 1,000 years. And we Christians are going to co-reign with Jesus on this reconstituted millennial earth. It's really an amazing, beautiful story. I mean, the whole creation groans right now. The creation is awaiting redemption. Getting rid of thorns and thistles and all the problems we have on the earth, well, that's all going to be resolved in this kingdom of Jesus on earth. And then the great white throne judgment comes at the end of the 1,000-year reign of Christ. And then after that, the eternal state, new heavens, new earth, new Jerusalem. Well, I'm just introducing Revelation here. Much could be said, but I'll hit upon some highlights as far as I see them. And that is, firstly, the duration of this tribulation period. We know that from Daniel chapter 9, verse 27, that there's going to be this Antichrist who makes a covenant with Jews for 1 week. And that's 1 week of years. So we know that we're talking about a 7-year trib. However, in this text in Revelation, it doesn't say there's a 7-year tribulation, but it talks about 3.5 years, which is the second half of the 7. It talks about 42 months, which is also 3.5 years. It talks about 1,260 days, which is also 3.5 years. And then it uses this word, this time word, time, times, and half a time. Time, times, half a time, that's 3.5. So we have 4 different ways that this tribulation is being signaled out as the last half of the 7 years of the tribulation. God, trust me on that, but you also have to study these time words in Revelation and Daniel. Big thing. Revelation 6 through 16 are the seal, trumpet, and bowl judgments. I mean, you can just read these. You've got open war. You've got Cold War. You've got famine coming on the earth. In the 4th seal judgment, you've got death riding on a horse. 1/4 of the world's population dies in one judgment. That's a big deal. You've got saints martyred during the tribulation. You have a huge earthquake happening. And then you move into the trumpet judgments. You can read these. You've got 1/3 of the earth is burned, and then 1/3 of sea life dies. Dead fish, dead alligators, dead sea life everywhere. You've got the water, the fresh water that we drink. 1/3 of that's going to be putrefied so that we can't drink it. Think about trying to live during this 7-year trib when you got smoke and fire and dead animals and carcasses and you got water turned to blood. It's just going to be a disaster on this earth. You got 5 months of torment with these locusts, these demons coming out of the abyss. You got 200 million horsemen who kill off 1/3 of humankind. So by just after halfway through the tribulation period, you got half of the world's population dead. Then the bowl judgments, these get really bad toward the end of the 7-year tribulation. You got ulcerous sores on people who take the mark of the beast. The beast is going to have people take this 666 number. All those who follow the beast will have a number on their hand or on their forehead so it's visible. And those people are going to get sores and ulcers. All sea life will die toward the end of the trib period. And the springs and rivers will turn to blood. It says, one of these judgments, the sun will scorch men with great heat. Now, friends, that's what I call biblically based global warming. And it's going to kill people with solar prominences hitting the earth and literally scorching people who are on the earth. Darkness, people will gnaw their tongues because of pain. This is a dreadful thing. The Euphrates River dries up and the Battle of Armageddon starts. And there's a huge world war going on toward the end of the 7-year trib. And that's when Jesus comes again, and then he wins that battle. But just during that Battle of Armageddon, I mentioned those 100-pound hailstones. Well, that's in Revelation 16. There will be a huge earthquake, the biggest one ever, and then these 100-pound hailstones, and then wrath upon Babylon. And that's the heavy judgments in Revelation. Most of the book of Revelation is these fearsome, gruesome, earth-shattering judgments that are coming. So chapter 19, things brighten up a little bit, and Jesus comes again. And there's the great supper. It says, come assemble for the great supper of God in Revelation 19:17. And so the battle's going to be done. And all these evil people who are fighting against Israel will be a feast for vultures. I call it the great supper. But it's the vultures eating corpses at that time. And that's the Battle of Armageddon. Then there's a great war in 1919. The beast and the kings of the earth assemble to make war. And the beast has these 10 allies. He's got all these armies with him. And then Jesus Christ wipes them out. And he casts the beast and the false prophet into the lake of fire. And then there's that great lake in 19 verse 20. The beast and false prophet were thrown into the lake of fire. So that's the great supper, the great war, the great lake, all in Revelation chapter 19. Chapter 20, we have the teaching on the millennial kingdom. Mille annum, that's 1,000 years. And there's going to be 2 resurrections. There's going to be a resurrection before the 1,000 years and a resurrection after the 1,000 years. Satan will be bound for 1,000 years. But at the end of the 1,000, he'll be released for a period of rebellion and a small-time warfare. Jesus Christ will reign. He'll rule with a rod of iron. During this millennial kingdom class, Jesus will be an absolute dictator ruling over the earth from a throne in Jerusalem. King David will serve as his vice-regent, his vice president. Jesus already told us in Matthew that his 12 disciples will sit on 12 thrones and rule the 12 tribes of Israel. And then Revelation 20 itself says that the raptured and rewarded church, we will return with Jesus into this kingdom, and we will co-reign with Jesus while he's reigning on the earth for the 1,000 years. And then at the end of that is going to be a battle called Gog and Magog, and then finally the great white throne judgment. Okay, so we move through the tribulation period, and then the second coming of Christ, and then there's a 1,000-year reign of Christ on the earth. And then finally, in Revelation 21 and 22, that's the New Jerusalem. Class, this is our eternal home. You've got to read Revelation 21 and 22 and just see what heaven is going to be like. We're going to be in an amazing city, and it will have streets of gold, and there will be a river of life running down Main Street, and the tree of life will be there. Just like it was back in the Garden of Eden, the tree of life will be there in the eternal home. There will no longer be any sea, no tears, no death, no mourning, no pain in this heavenly place. Its inhabitants, we're called the overcomers. And anyone who's been thrown in the lake of fire, they won't be there. There won't be such a thing as even one lukewarm worshiper in this New Jerusalem and the new heavens and the new earth. This is our eternal existence. It's described, it has 12 gates, 12 foundation stones, and the 12 gates are for the 12 tribes of Israel. The 12 foundation stones are for the 12 apostles. So it still shows in eternity this distinction between God's program with Israel and God's program with the church, though we're all together here in this eternal place. Its dimensions, it actually says in Revelation 21, verses 15 to 17, that it's 1,500 miles on a side. That's how big our eternal New Jerusalem is going to be. 1,500 miles, either a cube or some kind of pyramid city, some vast structure, 1,500 miles. You can look on a globe and figure out how big that's going to be. Just measure it across the United States on a map, and you'll get an idea how big our eternal home will be. And this will descend onto a new earth. We'll have all kinds of capabilities, but its adornments, precious stones, streets of gold. I call this one part its exclusions. In chapter 21, verses 22 to 27, the not statements. There's no sea, no death, no mourning, no weeping, no pain, no curse, no night. So it's not going to get dark. We won't have cycles of light and dark. It's just going to be light forever. And we will be into that. We will want that. We're going to be transformed. We will be worshiping. We'll be in fellowship with each other. I believe that we're going to be eating in eternity. Because think about how much pleasure you get from eating and how much fun it is, and how when you eat, you have a meal, you fellowship with people. Well, in the eternal Jerusalem, there's going to be fruit trees. Fruit for every month of the year. Why would there be fruit trees if we weren't going to be eating the fruit? We'll be serving. Our life will be a blessing. We'll worship. We'll have full illumination, and we'll be reigning eternally with Jesus in whatever capacity he would have us serve. Not so much as one lukewarm worshiper in heaven, and our ever-living existence will be only blessings continually. So that's our New Testament run, and that's the book of Revelation. And that's it for this week.